Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. Today we are celebrating the release of the new issue of Notre Dame Review, number 59. And we're going to have a few different readers. We're also celebrating 2 new books from Action Books.
All right.
Burn the Losses by Antonio Gamoneda, translated by Kate Hedin and Victor Rodríguez Núñez. They're here. And Emil Martin's W and E. So, the lovely people from the bookstore are here. And selling the books, and I will sell the issue after the reading because apparently it was causing havoc. Before we get to our first featured reader, I was gonna suggest that my what are they called? Managing editors, Prof. Dada and Rina Shamlov, come up and maybe read just a few 1 or 2 favorite pieces from the issue. So.
I read a piece by Charlotte Payne's What to Do When a Strange Parent Dies, a checklist. I'll read checklist 7. Decide on the funeral plans. Maybe you have been wrong. Maybe you need some traditional ceremonies with other people. It is feeling pointless and a bit depressing to keep crying around. They are not aggressors like that first day, but more like warblers on the surface of a lake, blurring everything under. Beg your brother and mother to come visit for the weekend for a makeshift memorial. Can we go shoot some pool? Hit the town? Your brother asks. Yes, you say. And oysters. I want some oysters. Even though you are an unbeliever, you are so desperate for some relief and so confused as to why you need relief, considering you have lived 2 decades without him. Visit a neighbor who is a minister. She walks her standard pool every day, and when you post new publications, her husband drops off wine in gold foil bags, which feel like miraculous appearances. So you ask her if she could pray with you for your family. So you ask her if she could pray with your family when they come. She immediately nods, as if you asked if she could pick up a can of corn at the store. In fact, she says she has just a prayer. It is titled "When a Difficult Person Dies." Finally, something that's in a 12-point font is true. Relish the fact that you're organizing a mini memorial that will provide a modicum of peace. Your family will go to worship service at the Poodle Walkers Church, then slouch away afterward to the vestry for private prayer. After the sun service and a lunch out with oysters, everyone will drive an hour to Orange Beach. There, facing the Shoshone surf, the turquoise waves, your family will throw 12 roses into the water while your husband plays Amazing Grace on his guitar. Each of you will say one nice thing about your father with each rose. This, you decide, will be perfect. As a film atheist, your husband asks if he has to come to the church party. You still feel as if you don't have a right to this grief, so you say he doesn't need to go. A year later, realize in therapy that both of you were wrong, him for asking and you for not stating what you needed. that not trusting your feelings is not another consequence of CPTSD. For now, repeat what was ingrained as a child. Pretend everything is fine. Tell your husband it is fine. All fine. He, the avoidant attachment type, is all too eager to believe you. And you, the anxious attachment type, who wants to be the secure attachment type, is all too eager to believe yourself, too. All you need, tell him, is for him to sing Amazing Grace at the beach. Besides, you're probably making it too big a deal out of it. You babble on. Your father was not like his wonderful father who passed 5 years earlier and whom he still misses every day. And there is one benefit: if your husband remains home during church, he can stay with your daughter, who is confused that her step-grandfather is not her grandfather. Confused that there's another grandfather. Confused that she finds out about the new grandfather at the same time he is pronounced dead. Thank you.
Hi guys. I'll be reading 2 poems. If you have your copies. You don't? Okay, that's fair.
Listen to you.
That's fair. This one is by Julia Anna Morrison, called Translation of Permafrost. I try language on with gloves when no one is looking. I think I'm in the underworld. Spring splurges on flowers, summer on orgasms. I made a mistake back there. If you get this, don't send language back. Send lightning, send a nothing bird. The underworld is filled of night lilies, of sleeping dogs, a house being emptied on a steep hill into endless boxes. I recycle books every night. My midnight gown smells like rain. Rain smells like colors matching, like blind blossoms soaking in light. I wasn't supposed to come here. I am a question here. My mother sobs on a large, pale mattress. I'm afraid her eyes will fall out like dark keys. The moon is always out, asking me rhetorical questions. Feelings loosen in me until I feel them every place. Phosphines or stars, it hurts the stitches in my scalp. I must have a memory of water I can't quite break loose. The memory overlaps with this one mother into the next one. My mouth chips off into red paintings. My mother translated me in her image. The piece of paper in the room I came in tells me nothing. If I had a pocket, it would be drowning. Another one. Prometheus's Liver, but if it was a uterus, by Marie Williamson. Boudoir photo shoot, seen through jelly shoes, stomp reliquary, glittered to ground, but rosettes rupture with no ribbon, remedied when lips, thorax and root phalanx at her flanks. The birthing hips of a freeway, settle piano pedal, and in pauses, becomes a Plantagenet possessed goldfish, dry heaving in the front of clothespins, shoe polish forearms, typeset her dimples of Venus, mother of pearl nail beds, sink wisdom teeth sockets, Vienna finger slime, business card hand palette, embalmed embouchure to coax confession out of waterbed. Then there can be no abduction when oil pastel wound still weeps. Dew in the grass wears stomacher as it blinks its bile. The dangle of her earrings passes the length of her hair, but not the slit in her throat. In the casket of her walk, she chokes on fondant. Instead of throwing a coin, she gives the fountain a $1 bill. But now she dreams of suffocating in a produce bag or dying aboard the SS Eastland. Just as she wakes, she thinks of a Dorothea Lange photograph, a man with his social security number tattooed on his arm. His jawline is both the Palazzo Medici Riccardi and a daybed, but she has nowhere to place this thought, so it dies.
This issue is full of really great stuff, and I hope you got some impressions from those readings. Here I'm going to read, there's a bunch of stuff in here that I really love. For example, one of my favorite books of all time is Inger Christensen's Alphabet, and I got some outtakes from that, from her archives, and that's the first time they're ever in English. There's New Rose to read the translation by Daniel Bersutsky. And then there's some of these. I'll read a poem by Dorothea Lasky. This one is called The Bad Teacher. If the shoe fits, you know. I'm wild, but I'm not evil. I'm not the evil teacher who sits in front of the classroom. I sit in the back of the classroom with the bad boys. It's all so lovely and awful, this way of life, and I can shout with the best of them. Anyway, something's wrong with Mommy. Her head is just completely off now. She's wild and entirely evil. She sits in front of the classroom, and from her severed head, she smiles at me. And even when I close my eyes, I can see she's still smiling at me. Anyway, something is wrong with me. I can sit in the back of the classroom and see my severed head somewhere floating. It looks so angry. And even when I close my eyes, I can tell it's still angry at me. Anyways, full of a lot of really great stuff. And I should also thank a few people. The fiction editor is who is obviously Dion Bremmeyer, and then Prof. Dora and Rina Shamalov are the managing editors, and Kathleen Canavan, who is the executive editor. Now to introduce our first featured reader from the issue, which is Aleida Rodríguez. Adriana Toledano Koltenchuk will introduce her.
Hi. Good evening. It's good to be here with no crazy storms. Well, it's my pleasure to present Aleida. Someone with the life story of Aleida Rodríguez could easily write an epic memoir about being airlifted out of Cuba as a child, leaving her parents behind. But she chose the medium of poetry to carve out a sharply attuned, almost surgically precise, and at once light and melodic voice that speaks in patterns that slowly start to seep into the rhythm of our thoughts as readers. I found myself constructing sentences in my head in the heady but embodied, fragmented but tightly wound tone of her poems while I savored the collection, The Garden of Exile, her debut work, which is many things: an exploration of languages, primarily English and Spanish, a testimony of exile, an ars poetica, a thematic autobiography, and eco-poetic treatise. The title gives us the two main conceits, but there are others. In Dark Drum, we get insight into the poet's intimate world of desire, romance, and homemaking, consciously and deeply rooted in a lesbian body. But the dark drum is ultimately the dark drum of the earth, and earth seems to be the true protagonist of Garden of Exile. Is earth perhaps the invisible body, invisible because it is all around us, that appears in the final poem that is perhaps the most philosophical, turning the whole collection on its head? Perhaps when the collection is most like a memoir is in the Cuentos de Cuba section, where the cuentos element of the title makes explicit the narrative vocation of the poems. It constitutes a deep dive back into the conceits of exile the collection starts with, and the last poem of the section really drives it home. Exile is to want something and to want something, and after a while you begin to feel intimate with the missing part. You begin to feel it's natural not to feel pleased or satisfied. You look for houses in dead ends to live in. It would be a dark and heavy collection if it ended on that note, but Aleida ends the collection in a garden, animating every living being with conscious and playful life, entering into dialogue and communion with birds, bees, leaves, saplings. I quote, "Though I have lived in exile for 30 years, I am led through a gauntlet of caresses, become a canal for the memory of moisture. I am not an orphan, they remind me. My body, my peasant body, surrenders faithfully to the wordless love of the grasses," she writes in the return. And in Backyard Opera, there is peace in being, a pause in the longer song. Claroscuro, Aleida's forthcoming collection, is both a continuation and departure from Garden of Exile, zeroing in on the epistemological dilemma of seeing and not seeing. Botanical life is still a primary medium of knowledge and self-knowledge. The lines move more freely on the page, and Aleida's mature poet mode feels at ease and confident exploring playful, rhetorical, and thematic devices like non-tragic airplane rides, Hollywood producers, and doppelgangers. The ache of longing that permeated every last poem in Garden of Exile isn't here, and the poet knows it, as she acknowledges that on the road temptation blooms, though I barely recognize it, retired as I am from longing. This is a poet that is looking back on her memories without the piercing pain of nostalgia, no longer in exile but at home in the good loneliness of her garden. Solitude in the garden is the wordless world the poet seeks respite from her work in, and also from all the heaviness of the human marks on the world. Thank you.
Thank you for that introduction, but I don't recognize that person. Who is that? The first poem I'm going to read appears in this latest issue of Notre Dame Review. And it's the first poem in a series called Poems from the News, things that happen on the news that trigger poetry. So the umbrella title is Poems from the News, and it has a quote, the famous quote from William Carlos Williams that says, "It is difficult to get the news from poems, but men," and I added, "and women, die miserably every day for lack of what is found there." Redeemed by trash, saved by the bags, how will the 26-year-old retell it later after he awakens? We want to shove our mics in his swollen face and ask, what was he thinking? How did he select that moment and place to leap? That is, after a colossal blizzard in New York City. Lured to the edge, we asked, did all that snow call to him, promising a soft white landing? Or had he considered the blizzard at all? Had his thoughts been a tunnel, everything muffled but the misguided gumption to climb out? Clearly he couldn't have thought about the outside world at all, or about the garbage trucks prevented from navigating the snow-clogged streets for days, or about the mountainous piles of black bags accumulating on the sidewalks, even more at year's end. Intrigued, we lean in. As he hurtled down those 9 floors, did he see them rushing toward him? Those fat, black, oozy hands of grace, waiting to catch him, to return him, a little worse for wear, to this stinking world? And then I want to read the last poem from that Poems from the News series. This is fairly new, and it's in response to the Gaza and other world events. In this series, too, the title of the poem also forms the first line. So it's set in lowercase because it snakes into the poem itself. Forget about empathy. Don't even expect simple sympathy. These have gone out of fashion. Human suffering so widespread, nothing will cover it or comfort it. Too thin, thin as weak gruel, so weak it's cruel, leaving souls starving and bereft. Meanwhile, the facsimile of compassion is plastered everywhere, like advertising, no truth in it. A fruit is no longer real, but a brand. A brand scorches, hide to indicate possession, ownership. Now it only matters what endorses the logo, not what has endured. Maybe that's why mass exterminations seem absurd, too anonymous. Do we care about gnats smearing our windshields? Not individuals, but something unpleasant in our way. The way the poor are removed from humanity. Removed from humanity by homelessness. The way violated villages become beige rubble. The way the innocent are ground between rock and stone walls of preoccupation and ego. Indifference has always existed, but now it's platitude pandemic, the historically heightened and deepened callousness to catastrophe. Too many deaths leave us numb, numbers too large, a brick sum to the ear. Not even children are concrete. The baby, pulled like a reedy root from her dead mother, is a curiosity, not a calamity. When she dies a few hours later, her lungs too unsophisticated to cry. Fairly recent and kind of fresh, as you can imagine. On the other hand, I'm also influenced by science, and this is about an object found in space in 2019. It looks like this. That's why the page looks like that. It's two orbs joined in the middle, glued in the middle, and they named it Ultima Thule. So here's what nowhere forever, and the epigraph is for Ultima Thule, seen in flyby images taken at 32,000 miles an hour from the New Horizons spacecraft, 2,200 miles from its surface and in the dim light of the Kuiper Belt, but ready for its close-up January 2019. Nowhere forever. Sometimes I wish I had become a scientist rather than a poet, working in a laboratory or out in the field, digging or looking up, conjecturing into the deepest part of the sky, where millions of objects, millions of miles away, are so clustered they smear into wallpaper, and making minuscule discoveries that seem to lead nowhere forever until, years later, the thrilling blip, only 2 seconds long, because that blip indicates the presence of something, but what? Nothing ever imagined is hinted at. Its shadow, not spherical, but lumpy as a potato. The most primitive and farthest object encountered, relic of our origins, but too fuzzy until we refine our senses, see better surface details, unlike anything. Hanging on the line, 6 hours, like a lover, waiting for the transmission to make its way through 4 billion miles of space. So that when two rough orbs glued together in the middle come into focus, the astounding shape, something never seen before, once that happens, it feels inevitable. How else to explain the way we toiled for years dreaming into the dark, inventing receptors long before we knew there was anything out there? This poem was written exactly as it reads. I was on my way to the AWP conference in Portland in 2019. I sat next to this person on the plane. So it's the woman on the plane. The woman on the plane didn't know who Pablo Neruda was when I mentioned him in passing. Pablo who, she said? The Chilean poet, I ventured, thinking maybe she hadn't heard me over the din of flight. But her brow remained furrowed, her expression tinged with trepidation, as if she feared I would tell her more. And I did. I told her about his Nobel speech, Childhood and Poetry, where he recounts an experience of exchanging small gifts with a boy on the other side of a fence without ever seeing his face. He'd received a small sheep with faded wool, whose wheels had escaped. All of this only made it more authentic, I quote enthusiastically. In return, Neruda had passed his favorite possession, a resinous pine cone, through the hole. He never saw the hand again, and the toy sheep was later lost in a fire, but the mysterious exchange remained indestructible, still giving light. That's what being a poet is like, exchanging gifts with them. That always gets me. Oh, I connect with the feeling, I'm sorry. That's what being a poet is like, exchanging gifts with others we don't know. I look at my seat companion through wet lashes, hoping for a knowing flicker in her eye. Oh, she says, a little uncomfortable, as if saying anything more might lead me to further revelations. I'm going to read my book now, she says. I nod and glance at the cover. A mystery or a romance, I can't tell. But I've passed along my gift, pushed poetry to the barrier of every day, and settled back, satisfied, Later, she'll tell her husband about the strange woman on the plane. But as part of her story, she'll have to mention Pablo Neruda, whose name I made her type into her device. This last poem is a little homage to a couple of trees that were always below my window when I washed dishes, and someone on the bottom of the hill cut them down, so they're no longer there, but here they are. Elysian Twilight. 30 seconds later, head bowed to sudsy water, and I would have missed it. The pale mauve stain that seeps up from the bottom of the hill, like spilled rosé, would have evaporated, and I would have seen only evening's indigo dress rent with stars. But something makes me look up from 23 years at the same sink and catch daytime's ordinary pine, shedding its quotidian pretense, entering left with a dark cloak and serrated eyebrows. At right, the ineptly pruned cottonwood's few emergent leaves fill into a gown in the fading light, and it glides in, holding up a gloved hand. Twilight, the dance these trees have begun between them, hovers at the edge of taking form, or losing form, becoming the evanescent portrait between the vases. The serpentine jewels of the Baxter stairs dangle from its darkening throat. A shadow mockingbird streaks to the highest spot to release its song. Thank you.
We're just gonna plow through, and if someone is super nervous about it, feel free to leave or go into the basement. But yeah, I'm sure there's a basement here. But I'm not worried as long as Notre Dame is not issuing any warning. Anyways, this issue is full of really great stuff. Aleida's poems are in there, Dorothea Lasky's, Inger Christensen, etc. I'll sell after the reading. I will sell those books because the bookstore can't do that. So next up, ML Martin is going to read. This is her book. It's just out from Action Books, WNE, which is a kind of translation of Wulf and Eadwacer, which is a medieval poem, which is kind of notoriously obscure or unknown or all around mysterious text from the Book of Exeter. ML told us earlier today in the translation round trip that she had gotten as an assignment in grad school to translate it, and realized that in the night before or whatever, that she realized it could not be translated just one way because of its complexity. It's maybe the only poem from the book that's told from the perspective of a woman. The narrative is peculiar, possibly some kind of triangle of romance and or violence. And so she started doing many different versions. And this book could be seen as like a ton of different versions of the poem. Some of them are, more traditional than others. Some are erasures and so on. So yeah, please welcome ML.
Tornado alert.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Oh, no.
Yep. Tornado warning for St. Joe's County.
All right, let's take a break.
This is already an iconic reading. I've never given a reading in a basement. I've never given a reading surrounded by a metal fence like this in such an impromptu manner. So thank you for sticking around. Thank you for coming out tonight as well. I have to start by thanking everybody with Action Books. Johannes, Kate, champion these translations in many places, which I appreciate. I'm so grateful for. And Paul and everybody at Action Books. I'm just seeing this book today for the first time, so it's very exciting for me. I just want to say a quick word about the translation. This poem, known as Wulf and Eadwacer, comes to us from the Exeter Codex. a very, very old, basically anthology of Old English poems. And this is perhaps, well, very likely the only poem written from a female perspective, most likely written by a female identifying person, but certainly written by what I would phrase a proto-feminist from the time period, which makes it especially valuable to me and others, I think. It's also anomalous because of lots of its formal features. It mixes features from Old English and Scandinavian, and it's just radically formal in a lot of different ways. The speaker is unnamed in the poem, and in my translation, they become ampersand, sort of the ligature between these other two figures known as Wulf and Eadwacer. So when you hear me say ampersand, that's the speaker of the poem themselves. So maybe that's enough for now. I'll just start by reading the Anglo-Saxon version of the poem itself, just so that the sounds of it can live in your ear a little bit. Can you hear me at all back there?
Yeah.
Wulf and Eadwacer. Leidam isminam, swilche him on lak gife. Willeth high hine athigon, if he on flyet caneth. Ungulik is us. Wulf is on ege, ik on authore. Feist is that eglont, fene beworpen, synden whale reawe, whereas there on ege. Willeth high hine athigon, if he on flyet caneth. Ungalice is us. Wulf is ik minus with lastem, wenum hogode. Thorne hit was reinig weather, und ik reer toegesat. Thorne mexe viad kafa, vogum belegde. Was me winterthorn, was me wethre glath. Wulf, min Wulf, wenum e fine. Sioke gedaidon, fine selt samas. Vernende mood, nales metaliste. Gehidest du, Eadwacer, und cerne eagne velp, vedet Wulf to Buddha. Dat mon eathe toste teth, vete nefrege somnet fos, und so giedor. So that's all that exists to us now from that poem, which may itself be a translation, some people think, from Old Norse. And I have a lot of little poems here in the book, so I'll read a couple of those throughout. Ampersand on Exile. A wolf must wander far. And Gife. Oh, and I should say, typically when I read these translations, sometimes I've done performances where someone else forcefully holds their hand over my mouth to represent the redactions in the book, which you'll see throughout. There's one at the end of this poem, so I'll do that myself. So you'll see me perform those redactions. Gife. Offer yourself as a gift. Give in. Give your body. Give birth. Give them what they want. Give them up. Gife. Give yourself to Thriat, the army, the tradition, the forest, the aggressor. You are different. Ungulik. They, he, this are bloodthirsty. Whale reawe. Wulf is Ungulik. You are Ungalice. When what is meant to bring joy brings pain. Think of the long departure. Think of dark skies. Think of and the branches waiting to belegde, embrace you. hear, Haida, what I'm saying, what I'm really saying, what I'm saying without saying. If I say gehirest thu, will you listen for what you want to hear? Will your ear move the sounds around until it sounds familiar? If I say Wulf, if I say Eadwacer, if I say I was sitting in the forest crying when a wolf approached, which story do you hear? If I say Wulf is othere, the other, do you hear A, wolf is the threat, B, wolf is the cub? Ampersand on remorse. Wulf, the howling, embraced me. Ampersand on violence. A blood-hungry heart should not be fed. Ampersand on their violence. And I'll read the footnote for this poem first. So, the proper name Wulf also denotes the noun Wulf, or wolf, in Old English. And the equivalent in Old Norse, Vagda, literally means forest man, which was the legal term for an outlaw. And in the pre-conquest Anglo-Saxon world, there was no worse fate than that of an outlaw who would have been totally unprotected by the law. Such a person would have had to remove themselves as far as possible from society, hence the phrase forest man. They would have retreated to the forest and would thus find themselves in a kind of de facto exile. There was no penalty in the legal code for killing such an outlaw / exile / wolf. Ampersand on their violence. It's as if one throws them a toy. Swilchehimon lak gife. These people, Leadamina, my people, are the animals, and Wulf is their prey. Different, Ungelik, for us. In this game, the wolf, min Wulf, my wolf, is the Uhu. They will Afrikan, kill, min Gied, my song, my son, if he moves toward, into, at, against, at the time of, in the course of, away from, their whale realway, blood hungry and murder quick, men on that island, Veras there on Ige. They will kill if he on Flyet cometh, if he commits the crime of walking into the path of their violence. Ampersand on the murder of her son. The Wuda, woods, is howling. Rietugu, 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 for its blood-cursed whelp. Ampersand on loyalty. We Afghan if they come for our pack. We are a different breed. We're slaughter cruel. We wolves. We wolf. We will. We, ampersand, or the title could also be read W-E, ampersand. Ungaliche is us. We are difference. We two islands, the same. Different. Held fast, that island, surrounded by bloodthirst. Husbands there will Afghan, hunt, kill, rape. If Wolf looks like a wolf, if Wolf's wolfness threatens the non-wolves, if Wolf's Ungolice is too Ungolic, we are different. Wolf is wolf and not wolf. Wolf is ampersand, is they, is she, is Wolf, is you. When it was dark skies, when only the forest could keep us alive, when we were two islands surrounded by battlefields, and every thread of joy was woven with fear, anger, hatred, mourning. Do you hear that howling? A wolf like us, and the joyful, woeful, wolfful song we make together is easily tossed the teeth, torn apart. Thank you so much.
Well, first of all, thank you so much to Action Books and to University of Notre Dame to make this possible. And I'm so grateful with this book. You know, it's the most beautiful. I have more than 100 editions of my poetry, and this is my favorite one. And this is a long poem. It's over 2,000 line poems. And of course, I won't read the whole thing. But there's a problem with the long poems that, first of all, no magazine wants to publish them because they are too long. And the second thing is that it's for reading, you know. But I found out a way to read fragments of the poems and make. Okay, too much?
I didn't say it.
Okay, nice. Okay, I will read in Spanish and Kate will read her awesome translation. Solo el viento pondera las hojas desprendidas de tu sombra, que esconderá su ecuación transparente, la rigidez del caos o la fluidez del cosmos, esta neblina inédita que la luz corrompe. Lo que se lleva el viento está bien guardado en alguna parte, la claridad resbala impasible por las quemaduras de la noche, nada que hacer, ha llegado el otoño a este feraz baldío y todas las glándulas le florecen. Debo echarte en los huesos algo más que ceniza, abrigarme con ansias, vaporizar estrellas, ácidos de tu sombra, savia virgen de árboles que no se identifican con el viento. Todo es fríamente imaginado. En su ebriedad el bosque balbucea luces cristalizadas, noche en blanco sin vicio ni de nieve virtual, sino una sola muesca en sus raíces, para volver cuando el camino parta. Sin la nube que hoy es mar de fondo, sospecha de medusa, los elementos se revelan.
Only the wind ponders, the leaves loosened from your shadow. What might its transparent equation hide? Chaos, rigidity, cosmos, fluidity, this unread mist corrupted by the light. What is gone with the wind is stashed away somewhere. Clarity impassable slips on night burns. Nothing to do. Autumn arrives to this fertile wasteland, and all the glands blossom for it. I ought to apply something more than ash to your bones. Bundle up in anxieties, vaporize stars, your shadow acids, virgin sap of trees that cannot identify with the wind. It is all coldly imagined. In its drunkenness, the forest babbles, lights crystallized, the blank night, no vices, not even for virtual snow, not one nick on her roots, to come back when the way departs, without the cloud that is today groundswell, jellyfish, suspicion, the elements are revealed.
Good idea. ¿Quién recoge conmigo la armonía en el polvo? Oscuridad dialógica que no escucha a la luz despotricar. No se discuta más, la sombra siempre tiene la razón. Vuelvo a medir el tajo del vacío en tu cuerpo a ver si me equivoco. De ninguna manera. La noche son 3 números impares. El ritmo que te extraña, el pulso atento, el insomnio más afilado. Nadie ha podido doblegar la sombra, ponerla de rodilla ante una sola luz.
Who will gather with me the harmony in the dust? Dialogic darkness, deaf to the light's rant and rave. It is not worth discussing. The shadow is always right. Once more, I measure the emptiness cut on your body to see if I am mistaken. There is no way. The night is 3 odd numbers. The rhythm, missing you, the mindful pulse, the sharpest insomnia. Nobody has been able to break the shadow, bring her to her knees before just one light.
Noche disociada que se repite, mester de extranjería elevado en un sótano calcinado de frío, luz piramidal, arenas contadas, irregular columna que sostiene la ausencia de crepúsculo. No sé leer las rocas, no sé escribir la nieve, solo busco la lengua que le enseñé al olvido. Vine a guardar silencio, no hay nada sino estar a un lado de la noche que no pasará en vano, escuchando a la nada su espléndido discurso sobre el ser. Ni una sílaba más por desgranar, la penumbra recupera el aliento, ordena el desvarío, no hay una sola muesca en su rostro de firme palidez, ni una cicatriz por donde se filtra el lúcido rocío, y no hay luz que ensombrezca el relumbre de tanta oscuridad. Lo dejo todo aquí, ni mi sombra en la página. Soy creación de la noche, desvelada materia que se afirma a sí misma, algo más que un bello apalabramiento, cuerpo almado, alma corporeizada, algo más que la cúpula en la vieja escalera del verbo con su sombra. Estas notas al margen de la luz, puro texto ilegible sin tu respiración. La noche mal escrita.
The night disjoined, repeating, craft of strangeness, raised in a basement, scorched with cold, pyramid light, sands tallied, uneven column, bears the twilight absence. I cannot read rocks. I cannot write snow. I only seek the language I taught oblivion. I came to keep quiet. There's nothing else but to flow to one side of the night, not spent in vain. Listen to the nothingness, its splendid discourse on being. Not a syllable more to shell, half-light catches its breath, orders delirium. There is not one nick on its firm pale face, not even a scar for the lucid dew to seep through, and there's no light to shadow the glare of so much darkness. I leave it all here. Not even my shadow on the page. I am a night creation, sleepless matter affirming itself. Something more than a beautiful wordiness. Soul, body, bodied soul. Something more than the cupola on the old staircase of the word with its shadow. These notes at the margin of light. Pure, illegible text. minus your breathing. The night badly written. We are so excited about Burn the Losses, Antonio Gamoneda's latest book in English translation. I don't even know what to say about this book. We're just gonna read from it. Victor's gonna read one poem to start off. I'm going to read most of the rest in English, and then he'll end with the poem in Spanish. Does that sound good?
Yep.
Okay. Burn the Losses.
La luz hierve debajo de mis párpados. De un ruiseñor absorto en la ceniza de sus negras entrañas musicales surge una tempestad. Desciende el llanto a las antiguas celdas. Advierto látigos vivientes y la mirada inmóvil de las bestias, su aguja fría en mi corazón. Todo es presagio, la luz es médula de sombra, van a morir los insectos en las bujías del amanecer. Así arden mis significados.
The light boils beneath my eyelids. From a nightingale fixed on ash, from its black musical guts, a storm emerges. The cry descends toward the ancient cells. I sense living whips and the motionless glances of beasts, their cold needle in my heart. All is omen. The light is marrow of shadow. The insects will die in the dawn tapers. So burn in me the meanings. There is a splinter of light in the appearance of eternity. We have licked, almost loved, invisible membranes. There is nothing more than winter in the motionless branches, and every sign is empty. We are alone between two negations, like bones left for the dogs that won't ever come. The day will enter the calcined room. The black suture has been useless. Still, one pleasure. Let us burn into indecipherable words. I saw trees calling out, wounded beasts, and the silica tremor. Saw the maternal vagina crying, and the pain in a golden bowl, and the suicides on the inside of the light. Now see nothing more than fearsome angles. Burn the losses, already burning in my mother's head. Before, the truth burned and my thought burned too. Now, my passion is indifference. I listen to invisible teeth in the wood. From the violent dampnesses from Thanks, Cindy. Okay. From the violent dampnesses, from the places where residues of storms and sobs intertwine, comes this arterial sorrow, this memory torn to pieces, still losing their minds, those mothers in my veins. There were scorched flowers, drill cloth on the crying machine. Oil and weeping in the steel, and helixes and bleeding numbers in the purity of ire. I saw lavender sunken in a hollow of weeping, and the vision burned in me. Beyond the rain saw diseased snakes, beautiful in their transparent sores, fruits threatened by thorns and shadows, grasses aroused by the dew, saw a dying nightingale and its throat light-filled. I am dreaming existence, and it is a tortured garden. Before me pass by mothers gone gray in the vertigo. My thought is prior to eternity, but there is no eternity. Spent my youth before an empty tomb, wasted away in questions that still strike me like a horse galloping sadly in memory. Still spin inside myself, even though I know I will fall into the cold of my own heart. Old age is like this, restless clarity. This is the last one.
Gamoneda read so slow.
So slow.
I will read this slower. Sobre la calcificación de las semillas ante las flores abrazadas, en la desaparición del pensamiento, tejen la hierba manos invisibles. Temo su pureza, veo lana sangrienta ahí en los alimentos, grasa mortal, cánulas negras y, bajo ramas inmóviles, cuerdas y sombras y preservativos. ¿Soy yo quien mira con mis ojos? Arden los huesos, oigo la fermentación del rocío. Alguien llora bajo los árboles torturados. Veo las llagas de la luz, altos patíbulos y serpientes y aceites industriales bajo los lóbulos de las amapolas. ¿Estoy yo en mí y peso sobre la tierra? Es extraño. En cualquier caso, tengo miedo. Los insectos vienen a mi corazón.
So this is the last poem, and I should say just a little bit about Gamoneda. Gamoneda is a poet from Spain. He was born in northern Spain, northwestern Spain, in Oviedo. He's lived his entire life in León, which means that he has been somewhat separate from the poetry industry in the capital, Madrid. He is an outlier in Spanish poetry, contemporary Spanish poetry. He is self-taught. He has always been somewhat of an outlaw, writing poetry that does not conform with what contemporary Spanish poetry wants poetry to be. He was fortunate enough to receive two major prizes. The most important prize in Spanish literature, the Cervantes Prize, and also the Reina Sofia Poetry Prize in 2006, both in the same year. One of the few who has actually won both of those prizes in the same year. And he is now considered by many to be the most important living Spanish or living poet in the Spanish language.
And he is 93 years old.
90, yeah, 90, he'll be 94 this year in May.
94 years old. He is
keeps
still,
going.
lucid. He have problem for walking, but he walk.
So thank you for listening to Gamoneda and to Victor and to me in the basement of ECO. Above the seed calcification, before the scorched flowers, in the disappearance of thought, weave the grass invisible hands. I fear their purity. See, bloody wool, and in the food, mortal fat, black cannulas, and beneath motionless branches, cords and shadows and condoms. Is it me looking with my eyes? Burn the bones, I hear the fermentation of dew. Someone cries beneath the tortured trees. See the sores of light, tall scaffoldings and snakes and industrial oils beneath the poppy lobes. Am I in me, and do I weigh upon the earth? It is strange. In any case, I am afraid. The insects come to my heart. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
But you're not
thank you,
done
thank you.
because you're going to walk up 3 flights of stairs and buy a book or an NDR to support our readers tonight. Thank you for everybody for sticking it out for this
Thank
marvelous
you.
collection.